The Galactic Council had assembled representatives from 47 species, each more aesthetically refined than the last. The crystalline Velkari shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. The graceful Ashanti moved like living silk through the air. The towering Zephyrons stood with their perfectly symmetrical features that had inspired art across 1,000 worlds. And then there was KRIX single quotes LA. Liam stood in the grand hall of the Harmony Station, acutely aware of every pair of eyes, multifaceted or otherwise fixed upon him. As Earth's diplomatic representative, he was supposed to choose a cultural liaison from among the assembled aliens. It was a tradition, they'd explained, dating back millennia, a symbol of unity and mutual respect. Nobody expected him to walk directly toward the Throlian delegation. Crixler was, by every conventional standard the galaxy had established, considered unattractive. Her exoskeleton was a mottled brown-gray. Scarred from what Liam had learned was a difficult childhood in the mining colonies, where other Throlians maintained glossy carapaces. Hers was dull and chipped. Her eyes, all 6 of them, were asymmetrical, the result of a childhood injury that had never properly healed. Her mandibles clicked nervously, a tic that other species found unsettling. "Mr. Chen," Ambassador Velthus whispered urgently, his crystalline form pulsing with concern, "perhaps you should reconsider. The Throlians are, well, they're not known for their diplomatic graces, and Crixler in particular is standing right here and can probably hear you." Liam interrupted quietly. He approached Crixler, who stood apart from her own delegation, her posture defensive. The other Throlians were beautiful by their species standards, smooth carapaces, gleaming like polished obsidian, perfectly symmetrical features. They looked at Crixler with barely concealed disdain. "Crixler of Throlia," Liam said formally, "would you do me the honor of serving as my cultural liaison?" The hall fell silent. Crixler's mandibles stopped clicking. All 6 eyes focused on him with an intensity that might have been unsettling if Liam hadn't spent his youth in the roughest neighborhoods of New Shanghai, where he'd learned to see past surfaces. "Why?" she asked bluntly, her translator rendering her chittering speech into flat, emotionless English. But Liam could hear the suspicion underneath, the disbelief. "Because I read your dissertation on comparative ethical frameworks across oxygen-breathing species," Liam replied. "It was the most insightful thing I've read in 5 years. And because when the Ashanti delegation insulted Earth's artistic contributions yesterday, you were the only one who defended us." He hadn't been supposed to know about that, but Eva, his partner back on Earth, and the actual brains behind most of his diplomatic successes, had tapped into the station's communications network. She'd sent him a recording of Crixler passionately arguing that humanity's primitive art showed remarkable emotional depth. Crixler's eyes widened. You knew about that." "I make it my business to know who my real friends are," Liam said. Behind him, he could hear the other delegates muttering. The Ashanti delegation looked positively affronted. Ambassador Velthus was probably questioning every intelligence report about human decision-making processes. "Very well," Crixler said slowly. "I accept." The first 3 months were difficult. Crixler was, as advertised, intensely jealous. When Liam had to work with other delegates, she would become withdrawn and irritable. Her mandibles would click incessantly, and she would submit reports, filled with barely concealed criticisms of whoever had occupied his time. "She's impossible," the station's coordinator complained to Liam after Crixler had apparently filed an official grievance because the Velkari cultural attache had touched Liam's shoulder during a conversation. But Liam, guided by Ava's patient advice transmitted across light years, began to understand. Crixler wasn't jealous because she was possessive. She was jealous because she'd spent her entire life being overlooked, dismissed, and excluded. Every interaction Liam had with someone else felt to her like confirmation that she wasn't enough, so Liam made it a point to include her in everything. Not as an afterthought, but as his primary advisor. When the Zephyron delegation proposed a trade agreement that seemed favorable on the surface, it was Crixler who spotted the clause that would have devastated Earth's emerging fusion industry. "Here," she said, pointing with one of her smaller appendages at the holographic contract. "This subsection, it seems innocuous, but combined with paragraph 47, it creates a dependency loop." Liam leaned in, studying the text. She was right. She was always right. "You saved us billions," he said quietly. "It is my function," Crixler replied. But her carapace had taken on a slightly warmer tone, the Throlian equivalent of a blush. Word began to spread through the station. The human and his ugly Throlian liaison were outmaneuvating delegations that had centuries of diplomatic experience. The other Throlians began to take notice of their contempt slowly shifting to grudging respect. But it was the incident with the Ashanti that changed everything. The Ashanti had proposed a cultural exchange program that was, in reality, a thinly veiled attempt to acquire Earth's genetic database. Liam had been inclined to refuse politely, but Crixler convinced him there was a better approach. "Let me handle this," she'd said, her mandibles clicking in. What Liam had learned was excitement. In the open council, Crixler had dismantled the Ashanti proposal with surgical precision, citing 17 different precedents and 4 treaties that the Ashanti themselves had authored. She'd done it without raising her voice, without insult, simply by being undeniably, irrefutably correct. The Ashanti delegate had no choice but to withdraw the proposal. After the session, Ambassador Valethus approached Liam. "I owe you an apology," the crystalline being said, "and humanity owes Crixla a debt. She is remarkable." "She is," Liam agreed. That evening, in the privacy of Liam's quarters, Crixla's carapace had flushed with the deep bronze color that indicated profound emotion. "Why did you choose me?" she asked again, the question she'd been holding for months. Truly, Liam thought of Eva back on Earth, who had taught him that value wasn't measured in conventional beauty or social acceptance. Eva, who had been overlooked her entire career until Liam had recognized her genius. "Because I learned a long time ago," Liam said, "that the most extraordinary people are usually the ones everyone else is too blind to see." Crixla's mandibles clicked softly, a sound Liam now recognized as contentment. Outside the view, the stars wheeled in their ancient dance, indifferent to the standards of beauty that dominated the galaxy. But inside that small room, two beings who had both been underestimated had forged something the Galactic Council would spend years trying to understand. A friendship built not on appearances or expectations, but on genuine recognition of worth. And across the galaxy, Eva smiled as she read Liam's latest report, proud of the team they'd built together, one misfit at a time.